Hello YouTube. So today I found out about this video that is from a psychology major, if I understood correctly, that it's about health and gacha games. I think it's a very complete overview of a very important thing that I want to react and comment because I have enough knowledge to do that and try guiding you all through the very perilous sea of gacha games, and also have an opinion about this video and creator that seems very informative. I like it very much. So let's dive into it, and I will will play the video at 1.25% speed.
One does not simply play gacha games. Gacha games play you. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the predatory practices of these games. Limited time events or characters, fear of missing out, obscure pricing, and so on. But how true is that? Well, today, allow me, a psych major, to chime in, which is, by the way, one of the most useless degrees in college ever, but at least I get to make this video. I'm going to show you all the psychological tactics I can think of in which gacha games employ to retain and keep you playing. At this point, I've reviewed several gacha games, and I've even started out this channel going over.
So yeah, he has a lot of gacha game reviews I will definitely watch. Maybe I will react to them. I think it's a very interesting channel based on this video.
One in particular. Hopefully at the end of this video, you will understand the many nuances of these predatory game practices and know how to take precautions to not get yourself trapped in the hands of these developers. My name is Pseychie. Let's get started. First, let's establish some expectations. By its core, gacha games, and by extension live service games, have two primary goals in mind: to have players play the game for as long as possible, and spend as much money as possible. But
yeah, because in the first case, you are basically the currency, because other players will play if you play. Also, there's social involvement. In gacha games, it's not important to play together, even if it's usually a possibility, but it's much more important talking about characters, banners, releases, and how we are having fun with new characters, because it's their main business model, which is the second point.
And spend as much.
Which comes from wanting more resources than the ones you can get by playing for free or getting just a subscription and battle pass, which are the best. Like, if you go beyond subscription and battle pass, those are the actual big revenue of the game.
Money as possible. But this makes sense if you think about it. As part of the player base, you would want your game's popularity to grow, and want to keep the developers within good financial status so that they can continue to make meaningful updates to the game you enjoy. I am also one to believe that the monetization and retention techniques don't have to be abusively implemented. One expectation I do...
Yeah, they don't have to be abusively implemented. The problem is it's very effective to implement them in an abusive way without getting punished by laws. I think a few things have been banned in Brussels and Hawaii when it comes to loot boxes and similar things, but it's not a very spread out thing.
Which I understand some people may have critiques about, is endgame optimization. In a gacha game, this is handled by one of two ways. The first is by making endgame upgrades very grindy, taking up resources that may take a while to obtain. This approach guarantees progression, albeit very slowly at a time. You know that farming every little of resources gets you closer to that final upgrade, and that is progression on your account. The light is at the end of the tunnel. You just have to get there. The second...
So yeah, of course, you can make a game longer artificially.
That's by implementing an RNG gearing system.
That's a very bad approach.
This will be your artifacts in Genshin. By making endgame progression chance-based, players won't know how close they are to their desired late-game build, since anything can happen with any given...
Yeah, of course, you don't... Considering it's chance-based, you don't know how much time you will need to get to your objective, because it is incremental, but it's chance-based, so it's not linear, basically.
Artifact. The advantage with this system is that you could get lucky and instantly be able to get a viable piece of gear on your first try. But the disadvantage, as you may have guessed, is that you could farm for weeks or even months and not get what you want, making...
Most of the times your account will ultimately get around the average, but that's because the number of rolls are many compared to the number... Yeah, you have... With big numbers in statistics, you tend to go towards the mean value, but there are very big exceptions. For instance, if you have a new domain, for instance for artifacts or relics or whatever they are, maybe echoes, your results will be will be very, very varying because it's a new one and you need specific pieces that you can't replace with other sets. So when something new comes out, the account is very much chance-based for a few months. And and it changes with the number of attempts, and it usually goes towards the average. So yeah, that's true when new content comes out. And every time you need to grind again to afford yourself to be on the average of good quality gear.
Progression in all or nothing scenario. I do expect either of these systems to be in place for any given gacha game. The question is, how well is it implemented? I try these games because some of them are pretty fascinating. I think for whatever reason, gacha games are home to some of the best storytelling. The gameplay loops are simple and
best storytelling, not sure. It's usually fine, but it really depends. For instance, Genshin Impact has a pretty light but effective storytelling, especially in some points. Especially, I liked some scenes that are also very significant, like, for instance, the Venti scenes, etc. But there are gacha games that have terrible story. For instance, Tower Fantasy has very good design, like gameplay in general, very many ideas to progress in the gacha game industry, but terrible storytelling. Wuthering Waves is average so far. I think it's not terrible, but still, there are gacha games that have very good solid. For instance, Punishing Grey Raven has very solid storytelling, even if it's a very slow visual novel. The content is very good. Arknights has a very detailed storytelling, but it really depends. It really depends on the gacha.
Unlike traditional live services, it's quite easy to jump into.
Yeah, the gameplay is always accessible. That's true.
And play, considering most are mobile games.
Besides a few. Maybe Arknights can be a little bit complex, but story is not hard.
And require relatively little maintenance. So for a bit of disclaimer, I tend to be a bit more skeptical when it comes to playing and reviewing gacha games. But that doesn't mean that gacha games can't be fun. In my early YouTube days, I played indie roguelikes, which was a far cry from the content I cover today. In case you're wondering why my gacha reviews always seem to be in the 7 or 8 out of 10 mark, this is because having gacha mechanics in a game, in my opinion, is already predatory in nature, no matter how good the story, sound design, or lore are. A gacha game cannot receive a 10 out of 10 rating. It just feels rather
Yeah, that's a good point. You want to penalize using unfair mechanics for monetization purposes. I understand. I would just use another scale. I would just say this is a gacha, so it gets 10 out of 10, but it actually deserves -2 points. But anyways, that's just kind of a matter of tastes.
Graceful to compare to something like Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3. Now don't get me wrong, I find gacha games to be fun and interesting, but the vast majority of the time, the maximum I will grade a gacha game will be an 8 out of 10, which already means that I think it's very good. The reason I don't bring up these commonly used tactics in reviews is that we become desensitized to them since every gacha game is doing it. I know it's there, I know the nature of live service games must have some measures of.
There's also the fact that gacha games, for the gacha element itself is kind of a dopamine rush, so there are things, like there are players that play for the gacha. For instance, if you think about Fate Grand Order, there are a lot of people that just play for the gacha, so basically for collecting characters, because the gameplay is subpar. I mean, it feels very, very old. Or like games like Granblue Fantasy is probably just fan base. I can't say the gacha itself is the core problem. The problem is that the cost is very high of the resources, plus it really employs tactics that are for making you end up spending more than you would like to.
Player retention in place, and I know these games need consistent funding to continue its development. But I also believe that there are ways to monetize and retain players well, and ways that are not so well. I find myself having more fun in these games if you know what they're trying to do. And now I'm going to explain exactly what those predatory systems are and how you can better take care of yourself as a player. Even if there's no clear solution to combating some of these practices, I think just knowing what they're doing can help you see things more clearly. Let's start with how gacha games tend to time gate your progression. Have you ever wondered what kind of activity in the game gets you the most amount of XP or progression points while taking the least amount of time to do? Well, let's take Withering Waves as a recent example. Following the footsteps of its popular predecessor, you'll notice that the two actions that will grant the most amount of XP on a routine basis are daily quests, which gives a whopping 2,000, and spending wave plates.
Yeah, I mean, daily quests is the fastest way to progress in any gacha games, together with spending stamina. That's the basics. But
which is in the 100.
And the other activities are usually subpar, both in resource gathering, like gems, and level ups.
Mark for each dungeon run. While story and side quests can grant you quite a big amount sometimes, they cannot be repeated. Now, you could explore the open world, solving puzzles and opening chests for meager amounts of XP like an absolute plebeian, or you can just spend around 10 minutes of your day doing dailies and spending your way.
So yeah, they are really making you. They are pushing you to do the dailies and spend your stamina every day.
Wave plates to get over easily 3,000 XP right then and there. Pretty sweet deal. This
There's a good reason for doing so.
Exclusive to Withering Waves, as a lot of other games I've played also do the same, where spending a time replenishable resource tends to grant the most XP, and what do you know? You can get more of these resources using real money. If you look up any guides on how to progress faster, a pattern for most gacha games is to tell you to log in every day, do your dailies, spend your resin, wave plate, AP, whatever it is, and repeat. From a time efficiency standpoint, this makes perfect sense, but you can probably see the implications of having daily missions as your main source of progression. They're dailies, meaning it would require you to log in every day.
This creates a habit, which means you are going to be wanting to do that every day, because a habit is something you don't want to ignore. Plus, the problem is that it gets attention everywhere away from you. For instance, if you have a creative endeavor and you wake up and you start thinking about, so how should my video game go? How should my novel go? What should I like? What about the characters, the story development? And then the intrusive thought of, but I have to do the dailies on this and that game comes in. Your creativity will suffer from that, because your attention is getting away, even if you don't play the game. Up until you play the game and you have those ideas out of your mind, this is going to impair you. This applies to many things in life, but gacha games really eat your attention. They want your attention, like social networks, but in a different way. So it's very risky. So dailies and battle pass are things you do daily. And China tried to ban both daily and battle pass practices. The reason is it makes things more invasive. And for the productivity of the country is probably something that is an obstacle. But at the same time, it was a huge business. And the proposal to ban disappeared because it hurt Tencent business a lot, like 20%, if I recall right. It was a huge amount, like billions lost because of the government attempt or proposal to ban them. So there are good reasons to do that, but also they are a huge business because they work.
Even if it's just for short bursts at a time. Add in some level requirements for quests and other types of character progression, and
not only for the money you get selling the subscription and battle pass, but also for the attention you get from the players and from the habit of opening the game that makes the feedback loop stronger, and it means the game survives better.
To encourage daily logins in order for meaningful progress to be made. This goes into habit formation, which is a point I'll bring up later. But for now, let's take a look at another retention technique. Live service games need a steady stream of new content to keep newer and existing players engaged. They can do this in one of two ways. The first is by actually making frequent and substantial content updates within a reasonable time frame. You can say whatever you want about Genshin, but their team has been stellar with content schedules and new events.
As long as you make new events, which are usually mini-games, the game keeps fresh, plus you have new mods, new ways to interact with the world and the characters, and I think it's a very healthy way to update a game. MMOs, for instance, have a different way to keep the game fresh, which are social activities and repeatable activities that are always creative. For instance, working on housing, working on special dresses for your character. They publish new clothes. So it's different. They publish content that allow you to be creative. While in gacha games, most of the times is events that allow you to experience the game more. So it's a different technique. But of course, if you are a gacha game, you usually don't have. There's no gacha game that allows building and construction and the creativity for now. So that's not the kind of content, but minigames are welcome.
Constantly engage with events or minigame modes, and the time to completion feels fair and reasonable. The second option, on the other hand, is by simply increasing the grind or the amount of time needed to get to the late game.
Yeah, this is very bad. Like, there's no reason to add grind besides just keeping players to the same loop that can be, like, will fastly become boring.
Or the completion state, such as what FGO has done over the past year.
For instance, the fact that you have to level up all new characters, find a new gear set for all characters you pull, is a way to keep the game always to keep the player always playing when he wants new characters, but the activities are always the same, so they become very boring after some time. And I really don't like it. I would prefer to have a system that allows me to build my party, and then if I get a new character, I don't need to level the character up again, unless as in MMOs, leveling up is a way to learn the character. But this is not the case for gacha games. It's just a loop that keeps feeding itself. With new characters, need new levels, that need new gear, that need new whatever. So it becomes boring fast.
So, by introducing append and servant coin upgrades, as well as making events 3 weeks instead of 2, in order to artificially increase the grind without actually providing significant new content. It doesn't take a genius to figure out the latter is much easier to do than the former. The Battle Pass is also a popularized retention technique, but luckily in the gachas I've seen, they typically don't take long to do, which should be the case anyways. Most missions can be done by
I respectfully disagree. You feel like they don't need much, but actually to be completed, they actually require dedication. If you are working, you usually don't have the time to complete a battle pass.
Naturally doing your events or dailies. Compared to some live service games out there, the time to completion is way shorter. Now, I generally don't have a problem with these types of progression. The short daily grind allows someone to realistically enjoy the game extremely casually on the side. This is a trend for the
I am not sure.
Games I've reviewed, but for the main
grinding is never very good practice in game design.
things I look for is how natural or how
Events make the game better, but not the grind, the everyday grind.
easy it is to progress. A common trend is by complicating progression by introducing a large and diluted pool of currencies and resources to keep track of. Some games still do have a lot of currencies, but they're usually grouped up in a list, or only used when you perform certain actions. I'll show an example of this done pretty atrociously. I'm currently playing Honkai Impact III, and this game has some of the most convoluted currency systems I've seen in a gacha game. Different modes take different tickets to enter, shops have so many currencies that you don't know how much it actually costs, and hardly any of it is explained to newer players. Next up are monetization tactics. The most obvious one is the obfuscation of the cost per gacha summon. As you know, most polls in gacha games use their dedicated currency, but the amount used per poll is often not an even number. There's Genshin's classic 106.
Yeah, this is famous, right? If you use a number that the brain can't compute very well, can't understand in a simple way, this will make understanding how much something costs hard, to the point that your brain will just give up and not think anymore about it.
I've seen 130, 180, 200, 280, 300, and so on. Of course, each step that the player will have to convert real money to gacha currency hides the actual amount of money spent, so you lose track of how much your shiny waifu or husbando actually cost. If the amount per summon was, for example, 100 gems, and then I asked you, quick, how many gems per 7 pulls? Oh, 700, easy. But if it was 160 gems per pull, and I asked you the same, suddenly you have to do one more calculation. You gotta use your head a little bit. It doesn't help that the majority of gacha currency packs are listed in off amounts, not in even purchases that equate to a certain amount of pulls. So in the human cognitive processes, we use our brains in one of two ways. There's System 1, which is the fast, automatic process, and System 2, which is the slower, more deliberate way of thinking. If I asked you, what's 2 plus 2? Well, unless your name is O'Brien, you would have thought of 4 immediately. You didn't need to think about that. If I showed you a box of donuts and I said, hey, pick one, you got 5 seconds to decide. Then you
you need 1 second to understand that the white one is the meta choice. That's very easy.
might pick your favorite one, such as the chocolate one, or the plain one, or the sprinkle one. You don't necessarily need a reason to pick a donut. When you do these actions, you're using the System 1 way of thinking. Automating these processes are helpful in everyday life. Of course, if we gave a thought to every single action we did, it would be very inefficient. On the other hand, certain decisions you make in life, such as which college to go to, which job offer to accept, we would often have to sit down, weigh the pros and cons, and really think about it.
Yeah, maybe I should have done that more. I have so many interests that thinking more about it maybe could have been a thing. But I'm pretty happy about it. It's just luck, though. So it really depends on the person. University is not that easy choice to ponder. But that's besides the topic.
System 2 at work. A general rule of thumb, we hate using System 2 because we actually have to use our heads. This is especially seen in present days, where social media sites like TikTok and Twitter promote a constant stream of stimulation to keep you hooked. Don't think, just consume. Mindless consumerism is a topic that would probably take way longer to dive into, and a topic that's not necessarily related to this video, nor do I have the knowledge to go over it. But this is a problem that's very prevalent in the present day. This is exactly something that gacha games' cousin, casinos, try to exploit. By obfuscating the cost of the gambling currency, you lose track of how much you actually spent, and if you don't get
Yeah, it's like chips in the casino, makes sense.
what you want, especially if you're in the heat of the moment, you're not thinking, okay, so I need to spend this much money to guarantee the item I want. Instead, you're thinking, I want this, and I need to spend more money to get it. How much? I don't know, and I don't care. But I need to spend money until I get it.
Yeah, because you're focused on the character, and if you can't calculate it well, that's an excuse for the brain to short circuit and make you happy and get what you want, but at the same time spending a lot of money. But money isn't something that you lose, you understand that you are giving up. Like, giving up is not something that gets weighted by the brain enough. A character instead is very easy to understand because it's like a social connection for the brain, even if it's just a waifu on a cardboard or something.
The best way I can mitigate this is by calculating roughly around how much gacha currency I
Or in our case, just pixels.
need in order to guarantee the results you want. Remember, casinos and by extension gacha games don't want you to think. It is to their advantage for you to mindlessly consume and spend money until you
Oh, there's something to add here. If you think about the gacha you're playing and you try to find strategies to spend less or to spend in the most optimum way, resources, not necessarily money, or you think about their builds, so basically you think a lot, this actually makes your brain believe that the game is important for you, and in turn this means that you will be less likely to give up on the game because your brain spends a lot of time thinking about it every day, and with time it starts to think that it's kind of a needed thing for your survival or your like daily life. It's kind of so if you end up thinking about the game much, it's good for the game. You end up hooked by the game. If you actually, it's also not unpopular to think a lot about the game and then acting impulsively when you are in the spending phase, when things don't go as you planned. So you rationalize like, okay, I deserve it though. I can work around my limits a little bit. You can find a lot of of reasons you're doing that. So the more you think, the more the game is successful in convincing you playing, and the more you don't think while spending, the more they earn. But it's not terrible. Even if you think about the game and you spend some, they're still winning. So it's not a problem, right, for them.
you get what you want. The one trump card you have as a gacha player is the pity system. This is, in my opinion, the main differentiator between classifying gacha games as gambling or not. You can't pity a jackpot on a slot machine, but you can guarantee your 2D waifu here. For example, in Genshin, I generally try to save enough to fully reach pity to guarantee one copy of my desired character. When I pulled for Chloride, I had around 27,000 Primo Gems.
No, I disagree on that. If you hit pity, you have a 50% chance of getting the character. And then you can think, yeah, but what if I hit 2 pities? In that case, in most gachas, I will get the character for granted. Yeah, but this is still gambling for a simple reason. When you get to the first pity, you are hoping that that you drop the character early to save resources. So even if you guarantee the characters, you are still hoping for a result. And hoping for a result is gambling because your brain will react as much in the same way as gambling. The second pity is kind of a fallback choice, kind of a special prize for the loser. Like they try to make you happy. But at the same time, it's not winning because you're spending double the resources to get a character, and then you probably don't have, if you are a light spender, you probably don't have the resources to get the next thing you will want. Specifically because you lost the 50-50, and at that point you want to spend money to compensate luck. You say like yeah, maybe I have been unlucky, but I deserve to be lucky because I want to have fun, and you end up spending anyways. So the pity is still gambling. The pity doesn't change gambling, only if the pity means having the character guaranteed, it is less gambling, because you still hope to get it early, but maybe that's kind of an extra because the chances are low. So in the end, if the character is guaranteed every time, that wouldn't be gambling, but no gacha game I know about do that, besides for Wooden Grace and PGR for the weapons. But I think PGR does it for the characters too, I'm not sure. But yeah, there are just a few far between cases, because the 50-50 is the actual gambling, and it's hidden by the pity system. The pity system is the justification that the game is not gambling, but it's a trick. As long as there's a chance of winning and a chance of losing something, gambling is there. That's my strong opinion about it.
If you do some rough calculations, a round of pity is around 80 pulls, so multiplied by the 160 Primo Gems per pull, that's around 12,800. But in case I lose the 50-50, times that by 2 and I get around 25,000.
Yeah, and how many months is that? That's a lot. That's a lot of resources to gather. Either time, attention, or money. Lot of money, if you want it in a short amount of time.
Scenario, I am guaranteed to get at least one copy of Chloride, meaning I can't get enticed by my impulsive behavior to spend.
Yeah, but what if you want to like the next character too?
Money, because it will never reach that point. For the record, if a gacha game does not have a pity system, and believe me, there still are these days, then the section where I review monetization will instantly get a failing grade. I generally judge the game by the generosity of the gacha currency given and the rates that a player can realistically.
Honestly, a gacha is generous only if you get all the characters, for granted, with the resources you get every day. That's very rare. Sometimes it happens a little bit more. PGR, for instance, is a case in which if you play every day, you get almost every character, but still you need to have the subscription, so it's not pure. Plus you need to dedicate time and attention, so it's not for free. There's no gacha game that gives you the character if you don't play and just have the game, and then you, I don't know, pull for the weapon or constellations. You need to invest something in the new characters. So generous, I don't think there's a generous gacha in general. There are more generous gacha, but generous in general, not really.
Obtain new items as a casual. Another subtle practice is the use of a free daily pack found in the cash shop. Whenever you log in every day, there will be a red notification button next to the shop, which you can go in and claim your daily free goodies.
Yeah, you can call it the bait. The bait that brings you to the place where you spend money.
Now, the idea for this one is that when you're in an environment where you're expected to buy things, you're more likely to spend money. Of course, in a virtual environment, this can be a bit different, but the idea is the same. Path to Nowhere actually does something pretty sneaky here, where they put the free pack on the right side of the cash shop, so you have to scroll through all the paid stuff in order to see it. Not only that, one can easily defend this by saying, well,
Path to Nowhere is like the alternative to Arknights.
Oh, at least it's better than nothing. You're still getting a bit of free extra goodies every day, so you should still be grateful for it. You see, we're defending predatory practices one step at a time. Now, here's something dangerous that some live service games might try on you. Remember System 1 and 2? Well, let's go back to that college application example. If you are offered to be accepted into 2 different colleges, you will likely have to research the backgrounds and suitability of your choice, since it is a pretty big choice in one's life. But let's change the scenario a little bit. What if you are given 2 offers, same as before, but both colleges send you an urgent email? If you don't accept the offer in 5 minutes, then both offers will be rescinded. Uh-oh, now we're running into a problem. You need to decide now. You can't rely on searching things up or really thinking about your choice. In this scenario, you're forced to use the System 1 method of thinking, when this decision really should have required System 2.
Oops.
2. You have to go by your gut instinct. Let's relate this into a game. If a gacha game gives you a flash sale deal where you can spend quite a lot of money for some in-game resources, but you don't actually know how valuable those resources are or they're worth the money at all. But, uh-oh, It's actually a limited time offer, and it's going away in just 2 minutes.
Yeah, this is very dangerous. It's usually on when you start a gacha game, you have like the new player offers. They're usually not necessarily scam because they are usually convenient, but not all of them are actually, they're not actually necessarily good for you at a good rate. They may look like at a good rate. A few are, but you need to understand that very fast. Plus, you feel like, yeah, I just started the game, I want that. Many games have that. Alice Fiction, Tower Fantasy, and non-Hoyoverse games.
Well, now you have to make an impulsive and instinctive decision to buy it or not buy it. When we're under stress, we often don't have the luxury to think things through.
Also, if they come at the beginning of the game, you don't even know if you like the game. So you need to hurry, get that. Maybe then you don't like the game, but you already spent.
And this is exactly what is being exploited. Now, this technique is nothing new in gaming, but used quite often by pushy salesmen, nudging you to sign a contract. I don't see this tactic being used very often in gacha games, but this is something I want to bring up. The next up is FOMO. You've likely heard of this term before. It stands for fear of missing out. Limited time events, cosmetics, characters, you name it. If you don't snag them now, they might not come back for a long time.
Yeah, so the banners are limited time, always limited time, and they never announce when they're going to come back. You don't have a schedule unless the game is out of in Asia and the schedule is the same. So you know in advance a little bit. You will never know in advance when a character will come back. So yeah, what if it doesn't come back for years and you start wanting the character more? They want to rerun characters because they develop them. So basically, it's free. It's free real estate for them. They don't need to do anything else. They just need to rerun them and make money. But they also can make limited characters that won't come back because they can like make a few of them like that. And yeah, that's a huge problem for players that want something so bad and feel bad about losing. Yeah, basically people that suffer from FOMO shouldn't play gacha games. You can't. It's very unhealthy.
If ever, even. Ideally, when I judge these games, a player should not feel left out or behind progression if they join late or are thinking of taking a break. This is the reason I have a FOMO section in my reviews. I cannot in good faith support practices of having experiences or rewards locked behind time-limited events that don't come back. Especially
yeah, but every gacha game has something that doesn't come back. Maybe limited items. For instance, I have been very sad when I lost the Klee limited weapon, even if I didn't need it, because I knew it wouldn't come back, and I had all the limited weapons up until that point. But that's not something that you should be sad about, because it means that you will be sad about the same things each time they happen, and it happens in basically all the gacha games.
Especially if that event contains important lore implications or very desirable.
Or yeah, events too, like events that have lore and you want to watch. You can watch on YouTube, but sometimes all the scenes that you have in the event end up in a library of the game that you lose out if you don't play the event. It's the same thing. It's like limit content, and you want all the content to have. You want to have all the content on your game. Keep in mind though, those games are live service games, so when they close, you won't have any. We will lose everything.
Items.
Regardless, so if it makes you feel better, you're going to lose everything at some point. So have fun with the game. Don't be a perfectionist collector, because there's no perfection for now. There's no currency you can export from the game and keep. There's no item that can be objectified. This is true for cardboard trading card games, because you can keep the cards. Pokemon cards now are very costly from the first sets, so they are kind of a collector item. But when it comes to gacha games, you don't have anything. You just have the service. Keep it in mind. It's very important.
This is one of my biggest gripes with a lot of these games. It is very predatory in nature, and I really hope this isn't common practice when people see the success of Genshin when they do this. The effects of FOMO elements should be apparent. They force you to monitor the game constantly to ensure no rewards or events are missed. You might not necessarily enjoy playing the game, but rather it will make you feel pretty bad if you missed out on something important.
Yeah, and the fear is stronger in your brain than a reward. It's very common. It's a very common knowledge in psychology. Being afraid of something is a stronger emotion than wanting something. Being afraid of losing something is stronger than wanting something new.
It's completely to the game's discretion if they want to rerun any past events or make past content permanently available. Some do it well, and some not so well. Now, something I want to bring up is that despite all these measures, getting someone to start an additional live service game is actually a very hard sell. Your time is limited. Everyone likely has existing responsibilities, such as school.
Yeah, there's a real limited time thing, and it's your time. That's a limited time. Actually, a real relevant limited time offer, your time.
Work. Currently, you might play one or more gacha games. But how would you feel about adding one more to the pile? This year alone, we had Withering Waves launch, Triple Z, and Azure Promelia coming later. The question is,
I really should check out Azure Promelia. I almost forgot about the game.
You going to start playing any of these games? And are you even going to give them a shot? If you have no plans to start a new one or even try it, what's stopping you? And how will any of them market itself so that you would at least give them a try? And conversely, how badly would any of the games you're currently playing mess up to make you not want to play it anymore? In the post-information age where live service games have reached full saturation, every shiny new title around the block is vying for your attention. Players today have a lot of choices of what games they want to engage with. The major difference between your traditional live service games and gacha games is that gacha games are considered way more casual and does not require a large time sink versus something like Call of Duty. It's not unusual for one to advertise itself as a side game.
Honestly, I don't agree. Gacha games require a lot of time and care and investment and planning, especially planning and attention because of the planning. So, is it really true? Call of Duty, you just open, play, close it. That's it. It's much more easy to understand when you want to play Call of Duty or anything else that is traditional. Gacha games are much more pervasive from my point of view, even if they behave like side games.
One you can manage on your daily commute or morning routine and be done with in like 5 minutes.
I mean, the fact that the dailies are fast doesn't mean that that's the time you think about the game. You think about the game after you close the game. Or the characters, the teams, the effectiveness of your team, the characters from your friends, the characters you want to pull in the future, the new patches and such. Like, with my channel, I hope we'll all learn to enjoy those games, but not being attached to any of those. This is one of the reasons why I cover 15 games, because I want to play them, but I don't want to belong to them.
Gacha games today have very short daily mission routines. It's way less stressful to manage if you add 5 minutes to your daily schedule, but even with such low maintenance, when you have to juggle and micromanage so many games, you'll have to make a choice. Which ones to continue and which ones do you drop? Due to a lot of these subtle practices with retention and monetization, the choice can be quite difficult. A subtle way to induce FOMO is through the 30-day supply system, which is now present in a lot of gacha games. From a cost-efficient perspective, it makes perfect sense for low spenders to gain a lot of value with very little fees. But there's just one problem. As you may have guessed, if you don't log in for a day, this can make you lose out on those precious rewards. The same for Battle Pass systems too. This idea
so you want to log in every day because you spend money at the beginning of the month, so you're like, okay, so I just need to collect the resources, right? So I just need to open the game. But then when you open the game,
sunk cost fallacy.
What's the problem? When you open the game, you also have the dailies. So you say like, okay, the game is open, I play also the dailies. But then when you're done with the dailies, you want to spend the stamina because you say like, well, it's still very effective, cost effective, like time effective. And then when you're done with stamina, you're already quite into the game. So you start thinking, you know what, maybe I should explore a little bit. And there it is. You are not choosing to play the game because you want to explore, collect resources or whatever. You started playing the game because you needed to collect the 90 gems, the 90 daily gems or whatever. And then everything brings you a little bit more time. It takes from you a little bit more time. It's very important to choose when you want to play a game. I will be playing dailies every day, but it doesn't mean that I want to play, that I need to play them. I do that because it's an occasion to talk about the games, but I will show you that skipping days is healthy, and I will do that too.
And the natural human tendency to avoid losses, aka loss aversion. I mean, you've already committed so much time and money into something, it will be a shame to stop. This is a very strong motivator to retain players, but I do have a way to combat this. The sunk cost fallacy is exactly that, a fallacy. The main misconception here is that it doesn't matter what you do, you're not getting back the money you spent. For a real-life example, it's like if you bought a ticket to a concert, but right before
Even ensemble stars, this person knows about many
the
gacha
event,
games.
your friends invite you to go clubbing. You know that going clubbing with friends will be fun, but since you had
This Tower Fantasy
already spent money on the concert ticket, you're more inclined to try that out instead, even if you may not enjoy it as much. After all, it will be a shame not to go. But this is just it. No matter what choice you pick here, the money spent on the ticket is gone. The rational choice here will be to go clubbing instead, since you know that your time will be better spent. Unlike money that one can always make back, your time is invaluable. In most live service
you should always keep this in mind. Your time is very precious because it's from your time that comes experience, and from experience that comes happiness. Money is kind of a key to access more experiences. But if you don't have time, you don't have experiences, so time is the most precious resource.
games, there is a starter pack that lets you spend a small amount of money for a big boost. This can be as little as $1 and is typically considered as your entry ticket, since once you justify spending even that minuscule amount, you're now invested in sunk cost.
Yeah, it's like overcoming the resistance of spending with a very small expense that brings you huge rewards.
And it's way easier for you to justify
And from there, it's easier to spend.
spending a bit more, even if at the present time you don't.
Do you know about the spending funnel? Like, it's like the $1 offer, whatever. Sometimes the games have that. Then you have the subscription. Then you have the battle pass. Then you have the advanced battle pass sometimes. Then at that point, you have the resource shop most of the times with the double rewards. And then you have the resource shop without the double rewards. It's kind of a funnel, right? It's less and less effective, cost effective, but you end up doing that with time because you did the previous step.
Don't enjoy the game too much, but since you know that you have invested money into it, you're more inclined to play it further. After all, it will be a shame to stop. Have you ever logged into a game you play every morning, did your dailies, and wondered, wait a minute, why am I doing this? What would happen if I just didn't log in for the day? When these retention systems are in place, it can almost make it feel like it has become part of your routine without thinking about it. This is habit building, and it is designed that way by nature. Here's my challenge to you. For tomorrow, just don't log in to any of the gacha games you play.
Yeah, actually, you should do that at very least once per week. Maybe I should plan a weekday in which I don't do that, to give the good example. Could be Sunday. Yeah, I will delete dailies from Sunday. It's important. Trust me.
Easy, right? Well, maybe at first, but try to think to yourself, what would you miss out if you didn't log in, and how bad would you feel about it? If you've been playing a game for long, it can be increasingly hard to quit. Because you're in so deep in terms of the time and money invested, it will be such a waste to stop now. But let me suggest something that may change your perspective on this. Imagine the total amount of money you spent on a game as the total cost of a ticket used to go see a live show. Maybe you spend nothing. Maybe you spend a couple hundred, 200, 1,000, and maybe even more. On the other hand, the total amount of time you spend playing the game is the duration of the live show itself. The show may have gone on for a week, a month, a year, maybe even more. It may have been a very expensive ticket, and it may have been
wait a
unlaunched.
second though. I mean, 5 years, Final Fantasy XIV is 120 euros or whatever. Let's say 120 euros multiplied. No, yeah, it's a little bit more. Let's say 150 euros multiplied by 5, right? So it's 750 euros, something like that. And that cost on the screen is not 750 euros. Yeah, so don't do that.
Sure.
Please, you don't need
even
that,
the best of
that much money to enjoy any game. $1,000 is not uncommon. You don't need that amount of money to enjoy a game, even for 5 years.
Those must come to an end. You got your money and time's worth. Now that the show is over, it's time to go home.
Yeah, they are services. Don't count gacha games as products. Card games are products, kind of. They're still cardboard, but at the very least they are products. Gacha games are live services, not products. And unless you buy the actual, unless it's like a real gacha, like the gacha machine, the gachapon machine that gives you a little character in a bowl, that's a product. Gacha games are a service.
Leaving the theater.
Also,
feelings.
when you buy a service, keep in mind how much do I want to spend for this service in total and monthly. In total is important because it gives you kind of an estimation, an estimate to know in the future, like how much it will cost for the entire life cycle. So let's think about Genshin. I can tell myself, okay, I want to play Genshin. I love the game, for instance. Now I know that I love the game and I want to play it 5 years. So I just can run the calculations. I can say, yeah, for 5 years I want to spend, most of the times I want to spend for the subscription and the battle pass. And they calculate the amount. It's pretty easy. It's like $15 multiplied by 5 years, like I did with Final Fantasy XIV. So it's like 750 euros. In that case, you know that you're about to spend 750 euros in 5 years, and you can divide them by 5. It's 150 euros per year, and you already know. If you want extra money in the game, you need to decide it beforehand. So for those 5 years, I want to spend an extra, I don't know, let's say 200 euros per year, so that it's 350 euros per year. But you can plan that ahead. If you go beyond your budget, it means the things are getting out of control. You should immediately stop. Think about the game as a pack of like a pack you can't open, you can't modify. You like the game that much and you think it's worth that much with all the characters you can afford getting with that money. Okay, so I want a guaranteed 5-star, sometimes like pull for one that comes out with money, and all the others I'm ready to lose. That's how good is the game with that? If the game is not good enough, drop it immediately without spending. If the game you think it's good enough, spend that much money. If you think it's too good because you can do with less characters, reduce your expense on the game. Think ahead. Don't think while you do things like, we'll spend for the subscription for now, and then think about the battle pass, and then think about the character that comes out later. No. Decide beforehand, regardless of what happens in the game, how good is the game and how much money you want to give the developers. Decide beforehand.
Satisfied and content that you've seen such a good performance. This is how I could imagine how letting go of a game could look like. You never wasted any money.
Yeah, at the same time, as he says, when you feel like you don't want to play it anymore, it doesn't matter how much money you spent. You already had fun with the game. Let it go. Drop it immediately.
It was all worth it at the end, and you're ready to move on.
If you start wanting to play it again, you just play it again. That's it. This is why wanting to collect everything is very unhealthy.
There's a reason I say, thank you for watching, and as always, have fun with the game. As always, have fun with the game. Thank you for watching as always, and remember, have fun out there. I think with the growing nature of live service games, we often no longer play them because it's fun, but because we would feel left out if we didn't.
Yeah.
With all these predatory practices, I think often we forget why we play games in the first place, and it's to have fun. It's as simple as that. Which means if you're not having fun with a game, and are playing for FOMO, sunk cost, or just gambling
drop it immediately, it is alright.
Tendencies, just stop playing. I am demanding you to stop playing games that you don't find fun. Hopefully with the lessons here today, I was able to better prepare you for any future games you might pick up, and playing them more cautiously to not fall into any of these traps. After all, gacha games can be fun, but just never lose sight of why you play them. Thank you for watching, and as always, have fun out there.
I think it's a great video. I think it nails everything you want to think about when it comes to gacha games in a very good way. I already commented the video because I pre-watched it. I wanted to understand a little bit more about it and if it was worth talking about, and I think it definitely is. This is my perspective, so I think it did awesomely and covered a lot of things, and there's a lot of dedication to the video. You can see it's very, very nicely edited, and I feel like very happy that this kind of video is around. I think we should be watching more of these videos and a little tiny bit less of drama videos, because drama videos, like, what do they give you? Like, probably a little bit of social awareness or awareness about how bad things can go, but at the same time, videos like this makes you more aware of what you're doing. And I think being aware in video games, while playing video games, is very important. We are looking for fun, we are looking for friends and experiences. So at the very least, at the Adventures Guild. So keep being healthy. Please give a like to this video. I find it very nice, and also it made me find out about a new creator that I will be following and watching video of. Subscribe to the channel if you can, and if you like it, of course, and maybe comment the video to make it more relevant for the creator that dedicated a lot of time into it. Thank you for being with me. This is my opinion about how gacha games keep you playing by Pseychie. I think it's a very good video, and even if we differ in a few considerations, I think we agree on the most important part. Play game healthy, in a healthy way. Drop the games you don't like. Just play the game you like without the need of spending money just for FOMO. Spend money only if it makes the game much better, and always don't avoid spending like an amount of money that doesn't make sense. Keep in mind that a game is a game. Back when I played game when I was a kid, games were like up to 50 euros or something like that, even less. So keep that in mind when you play a game. Thank you for being with me. Have a nice day. This is Nero Atlas covering, like reacting to this video after a fast watch. I hope you all the best with your gacha experiences, and of course, feel free to comment below if you have opinions about this. I will be glad to discuss them with you. And see you on Discord.